Thank you for joining, Juwad. It's great to have you here. We don't talk nearly enough as we should in person, but it's good to have you on Bold&Break to chat through many different topics, hopefully. Let's just hear a bit about you, yourself, where you're from, your background, and what you're doing now.
Cool. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Juwad. I am currently a 3D and 2D motion designer at Sweaty Betty. So it's women's athleisure wear, essentially, that I work in. A bit about me. I'm born and bred in London, grew up in Croydon, have a really interesting history with design and how I got into the industry. Essentially, just to sum it up, like I've only been in motion for like 6 years or so, but it's been an interesting journey. Prior to that, I worked in parkour, and prior to that, I was just studying like graphic design and animation. But yeah, so it's been a bit of a weird one, but it's been fun for sure.
That's pretty cool. So I guess, first of all, it's incredible how far you've come in just 6 years when you really like put it into perspective. The other thing that interests me is the parkour thing, because when I met you first, you told me you were into parkour, and we're both kind of like into sports in different ways, I guess. And parkour is like you did it professionally. Like, how do you get from that to motion design? Like, what's the route?
Yeah, I don't think there is a clear route, to be honest. I think I was just incredibly lucky. So parkour stuff, I was doing it professionally for probably about 8 to 10 years, and then it was time for a change. So I spent a year just reteaching myself animation and some of the fundamentals of After Effects, and then I decided to pick up Cinema 4D. I already had background in Maya at the time, so 3D was already quite easy for me to kind of pick up. And then from there, I just spent that year applying to places, having people look at my show reel and my work and stuff I was currently doing, and I eventually got a job and ended up working with you.
Yeah, there you go. That's how we met. And what was it? Do you miss that part? Do you miss parkour at all? Do you miss that part of your life? Or are you just happy to be where you are now?
I think there's always going to be a part of me that does miss it. I think it was an interesting part of my life. Like, I was traveling a lot. I was with my friends like all day, training 6 to 7 hours every day, and I like suppose who don't actually know me, like I'm now a family man. Like, spending time with my daughter is like one of the most important things to me. I barely get to see my friends, and the rest of the time I'm at work. So
that's a good dad.
Yeah,
That's a good dad.
I try. But yeah, I do miss it too.
Yeah, I bet there's a side of you that's like, I guess it's a younger, more adventurous side that you kind of miss. And now you have the beard now, so you're a true dad.
Yeah. For sure, definitely. It's getting longer as well, which is what I like.
Yeah, it's looking good. So what challenges have you faced getting into the industry, being in the industry, and what practices have you put in place to overcome those challenges?
That's an interesting question. There's probably several ways I can answer it, and I'll probably just give you kind of like two main answers. Generally kind of speaking, I think the biggest challenge for me was getting into the industry in the first place. I think a lot of the time I was kind of discouraged from even trying back at university when I was studying animation. And this was like proper animation. This wasn't like motion design, even though there was a motion design course and I knew I always wanted to do advertising. I never bothered to go down that route because I think animation felt more fun to me. But the lecturers at university out of that, they were always quite discouraging. They kind of were like, oh, it's so hard to get into the industry. Only one or two students ever end up in the industry, And I was just like, well, why would I even bother wasting my time applying if I'm never going to get into this industry? So yeah, it was just a bit like difficult. And then obviously I took that 10-year gap to go and live my life. And essentially, I was just like, I don't even know what animation is anymore. So essentially just having to relearn and apply. But I think like the discouragement I felt from like even applying in the first place was a big block for me, like having to like just retrain and just do it on my own instead. I think it kind of just taught me like you just gotta like try it. Like at the end of the day, obviously, I was very lucky to get the role I got. I kind of got into into the agency that I got to work at with you. At the right kind of time, they were looking for someone who had skills in 3D. Because my portfolio, sorry, was entirely 3D at the time. So, I'm surprised they even hired me because they didn't really, really need it at that point. Like we weren't even doing any R at that point.
It
So
was a weird
God knows
time.
why they
They
hired
were
me.
just
I still feel like,
throwing resource at everything, weren't they?
yeah. I still look back and I'm like, why did they do that? But
I
yeah,
mean,
it worked
no
out.
question, it
Here
worked
I
out.
am, 6 years on. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh yes. And the other kind of like answer I wanted to give to you um, was basically, I think a lot of challenges that I face being in the industry have a lot to do with um, being racialized in a particular way. I think for a lot of people, they might find that quite interesting. And I know not everyone's experiences are the same, but I think everywhere I've worked, there has been some element of like racial conduct in some kind of capacity. And I think that's something I've had to try and learn to deal with and to overcome. You know this quite well, but like I'm open about it when people do try and say certain things or do try and like, misrepresent a certain group in a particular
Yeah,
way. And I think, that's been the hardest thing for me in the industry because it's like people don't generally speak out. And it's like when I come along, I'm just always being like, well, this is wrong and this is why this is wrong. People are just a bit like, well, where the heck did you come from? And like, why should we listen to you? So, and I'm like, well, I'm a brown man living in Croydon and, I've been racialized my entire life. So, I understand racism to a degree. It doesn't mean I agree with it. It doesn't mean like, I'm just going to let it slide just because I am where I am, speaking out about these things should help. People should
yeah,
then be able to be like,
yeah.
okay, I'm going to take away and learn from this. Obviously, that doesn't really happen. And the reality is, it's a very different situation in our industry, and that's quite unfortunate.
Yeah, it sucks. And I've seen not only it happen to you, I've seen it happen to other friends of mine, other colleagues I've worked with. And that kind of brings me to a question I just thought off my head. Is it so we're not like talking about any one agency here in particular, but I've seen this firsthand. Do you find it frustrating when there's this kind of message of ESG on the front of like, we're diverse, we're this, we're that, all trying to like have a PR press release about how
Mm.
good they are, but on the internals, you just don't feel that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely there is that kind of disconnect. I think it was only more so apparent post COVID because a lot happened in COVID, especially the Black Lives Matter movement. And I
Yeah,
think that was a big kind of like segue into everyone's lives about why we should care about this. I mean, it was when did COVID happen? Like 2019. Like, I mean, you know, it
yeah,
should have happened way before that point. But yeah, it's people started being like, okay, let's try and study about this. Let's try and learn about this. And I think for me, who has always kind of studied it and always been around it and always seen the kind of like negatives of it, without getting into too much detail, I think it's never been enough. I
yeah,
don't think it ever will be enough. But I understand like we live in a world of capitalism and we need to continue to make money and keep businesses running. So having time to offset that by studying all of these deep, intricate things that happen in our history, like it's just never going to really happen, unfortunately.
yeah. No, like I'm trying to be optimistic in my mind. I think you
Yeah,
hit a
yeah,
good
for sure.
point that like
Was,
when profits are the core goal, it's hard to take the time to actually realize what you need to do and make profit. It's nearly an
Mhm.
impossible task.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think people forget, like, I had 10 years where essentially I was doing parkour. So while I was working, I had time to basically read and study whatever I wanted at the time, and I used them, as best as I could to learn about this stuff.
Did you, which kind of, how did you find, so that kind of, that racial profiling, stereotyping, did you feel the
Mm.
same when you were doing parkour at all? Was it? I,
No, probably not. But to some degree, I did. I mean, there were definitely countries where I went and traveled to like teach parkour or just to like visit other parkour athletes in the country or to like set up seminars and stuff. There had been moments where people, just outwardly like called me Packy or, just, and I can't say that, by the way. But yeah, like people would racialize me in kind of like various ways. And my colleagues would never really get involved with those kind of conversations. They would kind of just hear it but never really see it or speak out
okay.
about it. Not all my colleagues, some of them were, like there to defend me and stand up for me because I was quite young at the time as well. And I think that's kind of the point is like when you're young, you don't really like understand it or you don't really know what's going on as so much.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I was very young when I was in parkour, like, almost to the point where like, I think if I had a bit more like training, maybe things would have been a bit different in that kind of like work situation. But yeah, it was there too, it's everywhere, it's
yeah.
wherever you go in the world, unfortunately.
And I guess it both are very different experiences because there's a bit
Yeah.
of a subtlety in like a professional environment
Yeah.
that's hard to put the finger on, but it's there. Versus
Yeah.
just the blatant brutality that you experience in parkour, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, it's almost like it's almost a little bit more insidious than the industry we have now because it's
yeah.
like people are finding intelligent ways to kind of mask their cynicism. But
Do you
I
think
mean,
there's an element
we don't
of
include that.
do you think do you think there's an element of classism to this as well? Because I guess I've from
Mhm.
just experience, there's a lot of wealthy people in the work we do, especially in the advertising
Yes.
sector, and they're
Yeah.
sometimes naive to like predisposed behaviors that they've grown up with.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You're 100% right. Like there is such a huge disconnect in class as well. So it's not just talking about like racism. You also have to talk about classism as well. They're kind of like they work together essentially. And I think people try and separate every little like
Yeah,
individual thing into its own kind of like box or category, and it doesn't really work that way, man. Like, there are so many people that I've worked with who just don't really understand how day-to-day life works for so many people because
yeah.
they've grown up in immense privilege, and because of that, there's just no understanding for these
Just
people, and
complete disconnect,
that's really
isn't it?
unfortunate. If you can't even begin to understand someone, how do you begin to empathize with their life situations?
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. And how so you've endured a lot of challenge. Does this kind of inspire your personal work outside of your job?
Yeah, yeah, definitely for sure. I think for my personal work, so for those of people who don't know, I'm sure Brian will probably include some clips of some of my personal work. Hopefully, a lot of
No,
it
no, I'm gonna
is
leave it dry.
very fair enough. Yeah, just
Joke.
nothing, just guess, paint a picture.
Yeah,
Um, Basically, a lot of my work I wouldn't say it's innately like political, but it always has tones of identity. I think for someone like myself, I've always kind of grown up and, been told that my identity doesn't really mean anything and I don't actually have one. Whether I was in like college or university, like, people, well, to be fair, it didn't really happen in college, but in university, I definitely had lecturers who were like really kind of like blatantly racist. And it was just like,
Jesus.
um, everything I kind of did, or like everything any of my peers did, who were also people of color, we were referred to as dickheads, like by the lecturer. Um, and there's been times at work where, I kind of I'm just doing the day to day, but what does it really mean? Like, yeah, you can make a brilliant campaign. Yeah, you can kind of like, I like, spend loads of time and energy on making something really beautiful, and that's great. That's what people want to achieve, and that's fine. But I think for me, my work needs to have some sort of message, because I've been told that I don't have a message myself. So that's why I kind of make the political work that I do, I guess.
I can relate to that. I like the idea of making pretty work, but I like the idea of making work with a little bit more purpose and story behind it more, even if it doesn't look
Yeah, at
amazing.
the end of the day, yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of people say that, oh, we're like artists, we should be like artists, but art is there to disrupt, man. It's not there to
Yeah.
like stick with the status quo. So I try and do that as much as possible. Well, I don't know if I actually do or don't.
You do,
Yeah,
you
I
do.
try.
um,
Thanks.
how have you found? Because now you're working for Sweaty Betty. How have you found working in house versus agency? What's the main takeaways?
Yeah, every place has had its own challenge. Agencies, they're quite, they're very like forward driving. They try and implement new technology all the time. They always want to find ways of cutting costs. And it's really interesting to come from that environment where they're pushing you to be just like master of all trades, which is never really possible. You're never going to find
Mhm.
anyone that can do everything. And if you do, then you've struck gold. But like a colleague of ours, Ashley, like he was incredible. Like he was just able to
Okay.
think in ways most people can't. So studios, they always drive for like this kind of creative ideology and always putting creative first. But that's great if you have the clients to represent that broad strokes, that broad spectrum of like, the Nikes, the Adidas, the whoever's. But, if you're just getting like smaller clients and you're still trying to build that portfolio up, it's a lot harder. The income is a lot smaller as a result of that. You're having to put in more time and more energy, which can be quite stressful, especially if you're trying to start a family. So, there are all of these elements to contend with. And in working in-house, I think I'll be honest, so far it's been pretty chill, but that's because I wanted to spend more time focusing on my family more than anything else. It wasn't really about the kind of like next evolution of myself as a creative. It was more about how do I then find a means to an end of providing my family with enough resources to live, because the current climate is quite hard to live in. As
Hmm.
we all know, things are going up in cost every day. So it's just about how do I do that as efficiently as possible while having the time to also spend with my family. And I think in-house has provided that solution in terms of, whether in-house is the best that worked. It's not for everyone, definitely. But yeah, it's definitely been good for me.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with that description. I think it's a good description of all three sectors. And I agree
Mm.
with your other point of like it depends what you want and what's good for your career at the time. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
for sure.
Yeah. And everyone's career is always evolving. Like you should never feel like the idea that you have in your head needs to be flexible. I think people are too rigid with themselves in terms of like where they need to be and how they need to get there sometimes. And I think just allow yourself to try different things and to experiment, even with yourself. Like, yes, it is currently very dangerous to do that in this economic crisis that we're currently in. But if you have that freedom, if you have that luxury, do so, because it is important that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. Um, what inspires you? What music, art, video games, culture, family? What like, and it can be for
Yeah.
anything. Your work, whatever you do in your life.
Yeah, definitely. I think loads of things inspire me. I'm very kind of like open to new ideas all the time as much as possible. When it comes to my personal work, I think, you know, the inspiration is people around me, the struggles people face. Like a lot of things that I faced in the past, I won't bore you all with here, but it's hard growing up in a society where you're demonized constantly, and you look at yourself and you're like, well, if I'm demonized constantly and people are telling me I don't have a voice, how do I then combat this? How do I then tell people I'm, more than what you see. There's more to me. There's more depth. There's more like sustenance. There's more soul. It's really hard to like speak about these in like real tangible terms because they're just so like, I guess, ethereal, really. Um, and I think that's why a lot of my work is about self-identity because of that. And it's just like, well, that inspires me. I bring that into who I am. Like I feel like a very strong connection to all diasporic communities all around the UK. I identify as a Muslim and Pakistani, so I have that heritage as well. The Muslim part identifies with a lot of the Arab culture because that has a lot of history of Arab culture. So then I identify with people like from Palestine, from Syria, from all over the world, from Iran, Um, then you look at like people who have been objectified and like, like had their lands taken away, so colonization. I have identities to people through colonization. So I have Indian people, I have people from South Asia, people from China, people from Australia, the Aboriginals, people from, the natives from the US, people in Hawaii, So I try and like, while I am not them and I would never claim their identity because that's a different subject, I think, all of these people's struggles, they really inspire me to like talk about their stories as well as I can while not trying to claim their stories, but also bringing myself into that and being like, how can I help this situation? How can I talk about it? How can I raise awareness? I think things like that really kind of tend to inspire me. I think technology moves really, really fast every day. Tech developments inspire me all the time. That's what I'm constantly trying to learn and develop, like my technical skills. I'm always far behind like yourself or like Thomas, like always trying to catch up with people, even Ashley, all of these people who are out there, like just constantly on their grind every day, like props to you because, you guys inspire me as well. Music is a big influence, like a lot of UK grime. It is quite political. You obviously have the really kind of like normal stuff where it's just talking about nonsense. But yeah, there is a lot of like political music out there that really kind of resonates with me. The Low Keys, the Apartments, even Wretched, Kennard, for example. All of these people talk about such like deep topics within their music. And I think that has a real big influence. Like a lot of my personal work is named after like lyrics. So I've kind of always had that kind of connection with people's music. It's everything, man. Everything's inspiring. My daughter, she inspires me every day. She's just turned 1, so she's just like learning life, like learning to like walk. She's standing up, like all of these kind of like crazy things. And it's just like doing something for the first time in your life must be a crazy experience, and I'm kind of getting to see what that's like through her. Because obviously I've forgotten what any of that is like, really, to be honest. And it's just like, it's so incredible. She's just like constantly happy. And it's like, no one has kind of like beaten life into her yet. So, she has this kind of like optimistic outlook on the world. And that inspires me. My wife, she constantly inspires me. My wife is a fantastic writer. Like the way she can like put words together, and like I just can't even like begin to describe because I just would never do it justice. She's really inspiring to me. My mom, my mom studied art and design when I was growing up. So I got to see her go to university and college. And that was quite inspiring for me. It's probably why I took the career path that I did. And my sister as well, she did the same thing. My dad's big inspiration. He's always kind of worked hard to provide for his family. And I think that's why I kind of try and emulate that as well. This is a really long answer. I'm going to stop there.
No, it's cool. It's really cool. I think that's an amazing answer. It's a really good answer. You also read a lot as well, which I want to throw in there.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely big reader.
But that's quite a positive answer because obviously you and I maybe sometimes have a similar world view and see a lot of negative, but you obviously value so much around you that you obviously get inspired quite a bit, which is amazing.
Yeah,
and I get that. I value experience so much. It's the number one thing in life.
Definitely, yeah. And I think without worldview, it is very difficult to remain optimistic. But you have to, like, you can't be cynical all the time, because it'll break you down, man. Like,
Yeah.
you have to find ways to see the joy in life. And ultimately, I think what I really want from both my art and from my life essentially is to have connections with people. That's all I ever really want. It's like to be able to build a community, to know that I have this connection and that connection is going to break based on people's political views or people's ideology or people's, um, just hearsay. Essentially, people have an understanding of who I am as an individual, and that is what counts, I think.
Yeah, the connection's huge. There's a piece I did, I
Definitely.
think you know it, called London Stories.
Mm,
It was just about
yeah.
the culture and the music of London. And I think when even I think yourself also commented on it, and a few people from London
Yeah.
loved it, and I was like,
Yeah.
that meant more to me than 1,000 likes on Instagram or 1,000 followers. It's the fact that I connected with people who resonated with what I was trying to say. So I completely, yeah,
Yeah.
I second that. That's
Yeah,
the
for
most
sure.
important thing about art. Who's your favorite
Well,
artist at the moment? Do you want to give any shout outs?
um, there's loads, man. I'll give a few just to like kind of like name a few anyhow. Hassan Hijaj, he's a Moroccan photographer. I've always loved his work. He's always brought like a part of himself into the work, like his culture, his art. I think it's phenomenal. Um, there's people whose names I just don't remember because they're just Instagram tags. So I'm really
Yeah,
sorry for you guys.
yeah.
Waheeda, she's it's unfortunate, but it's the world we live
Yeah,
in, isn't it? Sorry.
yeah,
Yeah, there's an artist called Waheeda. She's from Birmingham, and she really does represent a lot of like Bangladeshi culture in her artwork, which is really great. Her and I have some chats on Instagram every now and again. She's a really cool animator as well. She's really trying to get out there as well and do some amazing stuff. Um, this new guy that I work with, Vijesh, he's incredible. He's like a really kind of like focused in brand designer, and he just is incredible. Like his own personal work really speaks volumes about him as well. Like he designs a lot about his culture and his religion, and I think the stuff that I've seen come from him is like phenomenal. You got I think it's Dopely or Dupli. He's another like a South Asian fella. Like he's out there doing incredible stuff as well. He's making art covers for like Marvel comics, and
cool.
when he does get projects that have that involvement of culture, he brings it to life, man. Like it's incredible. We've obviously got the people who we've worked with, like more almost like I can't even like begin to say how inspiring they all are as well, because they all have brought themselves to their work and the stuff that I've seen. And I've been privileged enough where they've all been able to teach me something. I'm lucky that, everyone wants to share something with me in that kind of respect. They want to teach me how to get better. They want to teach me how to evolve. Um, and I think, I'm very kind of like privileged in that manner. Yeah, just everyone that I kind of meet, everyone I interact with, all the artists, you're all incredible people. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, cool. That's a good list. I'm gonna have to check out some of these people as well. You're gonna have to link me so I can put it
Yeah.
in the show notes.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. I will do.
so this is a question, I think, because you're so politically involved in our industry, I guess. I'd love to get your thoughts on
Yes.
why do you think women are underrepresented in VFX and motion? I think they're both different sectors and they both have different
Yeah.
problems, but I'd love to get your
Yeah.
thoughts on what's going on.
Yeah. In motion, I would actually argue women are not underrepresented, only simply because in every place I've ever worked, there have been more women than men.
Yeah,
Maybe it's about the agency we worked at the time, but it's
yeah,
switched
yeah,
since then. There are definitely more women than men in that agency now. Um, and I think, it's incredible to see so many women kind of like breaking, not even break in, but like, they're leaders in that space. A
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
a lot of the people I've worked with, are incredibly talented, like animators, motion design artists. creative directors, you know, senior motion artists, whatever you want to call them. Like, they're just incredibly talented people, and they are being seen, they are being heard, and you know, it's in my opinion, it's a good time to be a woman in motion, because you know,
Yeah.
it seems to be like, you know, you guys are leveling the playing field. You know, I hope you are paid equally, if not more, than any male artist out there. So yeah, in VFX, it's a tricky subject. It's, you know, I think the long hours don't really help. I feel like VFX artists, not to like diss any VFX artists, and I'm obviously not a VFX artist, so I can't really comment on this too much. But you know, I think a lot of VFX artists are happy to give a portion of themselves up for their work, essentially, and their work being the commercial work. Um, they're happy to spend that time, that extra like energy, because there's so much overtime with VFX work.
It's
Like, there's
crazy.
loads of
Yeah.
late hours, and I think it's kind of hard. Like, if you want to start a family, if you want to just live life or be sociable, and like, you know, it's hard for anyone. But I think, you know, you always get kind of like, not to like call people anything in particular, but you know, there's people who just spend all their time on the computer and want to just
Yeah.
focus in and be good at that one particular thing. And yeah, I think that's kind of leads more to men being in that kind of space. And obviously, like, if there aren't any women represented in VFX, then women don't necessarily see themselves in that role as a result. So, you know, the more women you
Yeah.
see in VFX, the better it gets. Like, I went to a conference called In Motion very recently, and you know, there were loads of women presenting, and they were speaking about there's more women going into VFX, which is, you know, fantastic. More people, more ideas are being shared. So, you know.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. The unsocial, it's slightly getting better, I think, from just what I
Yeah,
read and people I talk to. But
yeah,
yeah, I think there's a certain age we all pass where we don't want to be giving a part of our lives and body to, you
yeah,
know, our career.
yeah.
You know.
You hit that window real quick, and like, it creeps up on you.
Yeah, I think it was
But
about
also,
28 for me.
yeah, fair enough, a lot younger than me, to be honest. So, but
Biggest motivators for you in life today?
I think equality and justice, which is a very cheesy answer, I think, but it's a huge motivator for me. It's it is a sorry, I live on the main road, so you're gonna hear those ambulances. It's a
It's the
very
ambience
huge
of London.
part. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a very huge part of who I am. Like, I think, not that it's not important to everyone, because I'm sure everyone would agree. Like, everyone wants equality and everyone wants justice.
Do they
But
though?
yes, it's debatable, isn't it? Semantics. How
Because
you
if
define
everyone's equal, someone loses something else. So I don't know if they do.
it's true. It's true. But yeah, sorry. One of my biggest motivators is justice and equality, and I think um, it's a part of who I am, in terms of like, it's very intrinsic to my faith, my religion. Growing up, I was always taught about like Islamic leaders throughout history who have always been like just and kind, um, very indifferent to the kings and queens of the West, unfortunately. West? Rather West, yes.
Yeah.
I had to do the Northeast Southwest in my head. Um, yeah, and essentially, like, I know history is obviously plagued and riddled with like lots of issues, but yeah, justice and equality, having that kind of like peace for everyone, having the same kind of like lifestyle. Like, we in the West here, we are so privileged. Yes, life is hard because we constantly have to work and like gain capital for life, but you know, at the end of the day, we're not being bombed, and no one's going around. Not in the UK anyway. No one's going around shooting us
Yeah.
on a daily basis, or shooting up schools like they do in the US. Like, you know, we have latest technology if we are able to afford it. You know, there are so many privileges and benefits to living in this kind of society, and I think it's very unfortunate, not to like look down on like the Arab nations, or you know, the Asia or any other continents, like saying that they have less, because obviously there are booming technologies over there as well. Like, India just sent a satellite to the moon and stuff. So, they're obviously quite capable and quite advanced. It's just like having the same sense of freedoms that we have here, I think, in some regards. You know what? This is a terrible answer. I don't know why I'm waffling with this one so much. But yeah, I think ultimately having that for everyone, having the kind of like peace or unity that I have in my head for groups of people, for like your companions, community, for anyone else that is a human, like some sort of like tribal unity within the world. I think that's a big motivator for me. We'll probably never achieve it, and I know like that's fine. Like I can live with my lofty ideas of eventually having that, but like who was it? It was like Fanon. He fought for an independence he never was alive to ever see. So people like him, people like Malcolm, people like George Jackson, Mumia Abdul, like all of these people who have like paved the way for equality as much as they can, even Julian Assange, like, these people should be aspired towards, I think, more than anything. And that's a big motivator for me. I don't really do much. I just make a bit of art and I talk about something. It's not changing many people's lives at the end of the day, unfortunately. So these people, put their lives on the line to try and help people. Salvador Allende, all of these people like that. So yeah, that's a big motivator for me. I think my daughter is a huge motivator. I want her to like grow up in a world where it's kinder to her than it ever was to me. I think you might be able to relate to this as a father. The world is harsh. The world is very cruel. And I think the difference between us is the fact that, my daughter will be racialized in ways your daughter will never be, and I have to try and teach her that. I have to try and teach her about how people be more unkind towards her as a result of that. She's going to have to go through slightly different struggles as a result of that. And it's how do I make sure I'm doing my job as a father, not to protect her, because I can't protect her from all of these things. It's impossible, but to just make her aware that these things are happening, are in the world, and B, also just like trying to do my bit to change the world if I can. Huge motivator for me. Probably never will, but I try. Those are my answers.
No, they're good answers. And that's a tough one, being a dad. I think being a dad and being in that situation is tough, because I don't have to experience that. I mean, how do you even broach that subject?
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. If you have any answers, let me know.
I wish I did. What does the future hold for Juwad? Like, what do you have any ideas about projects you want to do, new software you want to learn? Yeah.
So currently, like near future, I think I've very recently kind of like gone back and I'm like trying to secure the fundamentals of design. So I'm learning about like graphic design history, grids, principles of animation. I'm like really kind of like focusing on that while still developing like technical skills in terms of like learning like Nomad at the moment. I'm still working on a few projects for the kind of like series that I'm working on at the moment, which you've been lucky to see one of them, because I asked you for feedback, which is I'm very thankful for. That's kind of like the near future. That's what I'm doing. I mean, it's difficult to say. I want to work on a project that actually creates something physical. I really want to make something physical, something like tangible that I can like hold and touch. So I want to work on that, and that's going to be in connection to my heritage as well. So there are talks happening in the background to help develop that and turn that into some sort of business. Whether it's ever successful, we'll see. I think there's always a big drive to like be commercialized in some way, and that's not what I'm trying to do. It's just trying to make some additional income and understand business in a slightly different way to what I'm exposed to at the moment, which is I am a employee and business is thrown at me and I just do. Whereas this would give me the opportunity to learn more. And it ties me back home as well. Like I'm working with like one of my aunts who has really big connections in terms of like industrial industries back in Pakistan. So, hopefully gives me the opportunity to have some roots back in Pakistan. Although I'm like third generation British, like, it's good to have that kind of connection and that kind of like tie to,
Yeah,
you
of
know,
course.
somewhere else, because, growing up in my life, everyone's always told me, well, go back home. And I'm like, well, I've been here for like 3 generations. How far back do you want me to go? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's kind of
I live down the
it.
road, mate.
I just live around the corner. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it in terms of what I have in my head. I would like to potentially eventually one day do like a gallery. That would be a really good
Yeah,
dream. I'd like to get artists together that, have been inspiring to me, or like, that I really like admire their work, and just do some sort of like connective inspiration, heritage piece of some kind, some sort of identity piece, obviously, because that brings about identity with me. Um, yeah, I would love that one day, and it could be like spoken word, it could be like actual writing, it could be like,
cool.
physical art, digital art, like it could be whatever. I think that idea is to get everyone into the room and then start having a conversation about where do we go from here, because once we have that unity, I think, we're pretty unstoppable, but it's getting that unity down in the first place. I'm part of like many WhatsApp groups with loads of different artists from different cultures, and it's a mess sometimes, man.
I
It's
bet
not great.
artists are
Yeah.
just we're chaotic people in our minds.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
the idea of the
Definitely.
gallery, isn't it? Because the gallery,
Yeah.
I'd love to get my work in a gallery, but I hate the idea of rubbing shoulders with the elitism of modern art.
For sure. Yeah.
It
Exactly.
does my head in, and I'm wondering where can I find that gap. I thought it was
Yeah.
NFTs, but it was a bro hole of fraud and scam. So
For sure.
that didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard. I think for me, it's definitely going to be independent galleries. It's definitely going to be doing it off my own back of my own finances for some time at least, until I am able to get it to a place where it's able to kind of do the same thing and generate, and other people can look after it. Like the idea isn't to gatekeep this either. It's to open it out to communities, and communities can then develop and bring their own ideas forward. These are lofty ideas, and I think, they never really ever pan out or work in the end, but, you can try. You can try.
It
It doesn't
doesn't
stop you
matter. You
trying,
got to
does it?
keep moving. You've got to keep moving, and got to
Exactly,
keep
exactly. Yeah,
dreams are the
exactly.
only thing that give us purpose and keep us existing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think ultimately, like, I would love for one day in the future, like, my daughter's like, I don't know, in secondary school or in college, and she's got an art class, and, they're discussing like a piece of my work or something. That'd be like
That'd be
amazing,
sick.
or she brings my work to her class, and she's just like, but my dad is a designer, and he works on this, and, it means all of this in terms of representation of me and my culture and my heritage. And I think that'd just be incredible. It'd be phenomenal to like have that, because I think, I had, I don't know if you know, but my poppy pieces that were shown all over the UK, like it was like
Yeah, I saw that. That
phenomenal
was
to have
amazing.
that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
experience. Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. It was really phenomenal to have that kind of like experience of people seeing my art out in the world, like personal art as well, out in the world. And my uncle kind of texted me saying he showed it to one of his colleagues, and his colleague was crying. And I think it's that kind of like visceral reaction
Yeah.
to connection of yourself. I think that's incredible. It's something that I was aspired to like achieve, and hopefully I can continue to achieve it in my work. Just bringing people a sense of like joy somewhere.
Yeah. If you could bottle that feeling and sell it, you'd be a millionaire.
Exactly, exactly, and that's what most pharmaceutical companies do, don't
I was wondering if you'd segue to that. Brilliant.
they?
I set you right up there for the alley oop.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to look at one slide question that I want you to ask me, but you never did, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. is, what would I tell like a younger me, right? And in fact, I want you to answer this question as well.
Okay, cool.
Like, I would just tell myself to like kind of just like calm down and be patient. Like, I think I rushed a lot about almost every aspect of my life, whether it be like relationships, whether it be like, education, or, it'd be like achievements. I drove so hard that I got blindsided. And I think that, you need to take a step back and be like, okay, while you're young, it's very hard to do this. And I understand, because your life seems so immediate as a young person, but have that patience and have that kind of like time with yourself to learn and figure out what it is you want to be in the world. Because I think they force it upon you so much when you're young. It's just like,
Yeah.
what do you want to be when you're older? Like, you've got to go to school, and then this, and this, if you want to do X, Y, and Z as well. And it's just like, it's fine. You can change your careers. Like, I changed my career like when I was 27, 26. So, and it's worked out. Like, I've been in this industry 6 years, and like I'm a senior motion designer. Like, it's a bit crazy. You can kind of just do whatever you want. You're not stuck to a single way of life for the rest of your life, man. Like, it's flexible, it's fluid, like you are. So just always keep trying things. But yeah, your turn to answer that question.
What would I tell younger self? Definitely start a pension earlier. I think
For sure. For sure.
One of my biggest regrets is not starting a pension at 22, 23. Even though I would have been able to do nothing with it, it would have been a little bit more than I have now. So,
yeah,
as boring as that advice is, start a pension early.
Yeah, because when you hit 30, you realize it's not that far away to retirement age. It's just
you realize you're screwed. I have no money in it.
Actually,
and there's all this talk of like, oh, you need at least $500,000. It's like, how am I going to get there?
Exactly.
So yeah, start a pension, kids. What else will I say? I think I would definitely take inspiration from. This is a weird one. So I agree with slow down, but I would say slow down after a certain point and realize your energy levels.
Yeah.
Because I think you just have a different energy from the age of 20 to maybe 27, 28, 29. Even some people are just have that. And, maybe contextually every now and again it's worth doing a late night and stuff. But after a certain point, don't continue that trend. You're going to destroy yourself, your relationships. You're going to want to maybe start a family one day. Settle down. It's not worth it. Try and put in the hard work early and have no regrets, and then chill a little bit. I think that would be where I'm at, because I guess sometimes I think I still don't take that advice. I've pushed too hard sometimes, and I should just relax, which is why I've recently gone full time, because I think I pushed myself into a corner with my company where it was just creating an immense amount of stress, because I had this idea and this ego of what I wanted to do. And the other thing would be, don't be afraid of rejection. It's actually going to probably help you along your career. It's the first few years of rejection is the hardest and most heartbreaking bit, but after a while you don't care about it and eventually pays off, I guess. And it's easier for some people after a while, but I think I almost put myself in positions where I knew I had no chance, just to learn.
Yeah. That's good, man. Yeah, you need to have that. You are right.
And
you are right.
What else would I say? I think always find, if your personal art is great to do, but it's only worth doing if there's a purpose to it. If you're just following a trend, or that's fine, you'll learn through that, but definitely have some purpose in the work you do outside of commercial work, because you'll find you'll keep the joy and the flame alive. Whereas if you're just mindlessly machine factory trending out stuff with the hashtags, you're not going to find any joy in that. make something weird and wonderful, post it, and don't give a shit what people think.
Yeah, like Inktober, like you don't have to do Inktober, guys. Or the 26 days of type or whatever it is.
No,
No offense to
no.
anyone who does do them. Like, by all means, go ahead if that's how you feel inclined to do. But there's no pressure to do this kind of stuff. Like I don't personally do this kind of stuff. So, you know, I don't know. Like it's up for other people to decide how good my art is. But you know, I think my art's pretty good, and I don't have to do lofty things like that. So
yeah. And sometimes those challenges are good, right? But they put an unnecessary amount of pressure on you, and it builds this facade that you're better than someone because you were able to do 26 days of work, and that's just not the case. And clout on Instagram means absolutely nothing, you know?
Yeah, it definitely doesn't. Yeah. It's hard to learn. It's a hard thing to for people. That's one of the things. Like, I don't envy the generation below us because, you know, you and I live in the age of narcissism. I can't imagine how bad that's going to get when they're of an age where, you know, they're having to like work and like do things. Like almost everyone wants to be a bloody influencer, and it's, you know, such a shame. Like, where's the soul in that? Where are you as an individual? Everyone's just a carbon copy of the next person, and you know, you're more than that. You are an amazing person as an individual, and you should hold on to that individualism.
There's no template.
Not trying to big up like, yeah, exactly. There's no template for humanity, man. Like just be you, just experience life how you want to experience it. Maybe get off social media for a little bit. It's not that interesting.
Take a break from it. I mean, you get more inspiration going for a walk around your block, even if you think it's boring, than you would from scrolling Instagram, in my opinion, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Maybe not.
Cool.
I don't know if I agree. But
spend long enough in London on any block and you'll get inspired.
Be safe though.
I know I did. It was great having you. Thank you for joining. It was amazing.
Before you sign out,
by the way.
Thank you so much, man. But before you sign out, just, you know, I want to just like personal big up to everyone who's like kind of including yourself, but you know, people like Oded, like, you know, you've helped me get to this point in my career where I'm here and I'm able to like do these talks and have my artwork seen by like people around the UK, and like, you know, it means a lot, and I don't really get the opportunity to thank people like you guys often. So I just wanted to like, you know, just shout out to anyone who's ever been a part of my journey in any capacity. It means a lot. And thank you for having me on this show.
It's great to have you. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.